final. Jitka Antasova and Gabriela Varikova of the Czech Republic in lane 1. This is Magdalena Schmuder, and sitting in front there, Steffi Schiller in the stroke seat. Then for Great Britain, Annie Vernon and Anna Bebbington in lane 3. One of the, in fact, the fastest qualifiers from the semi-finals in 6:57. And then in lane 4, the very experienced Volna Baratsnyova and Yulia Bishik for Belarus. China, yet again, this is Yin and Tang for the Chinese in lane 5, and lane 6, Xi and Feng in lane 6. So very interesting. They're side by side. So this is not only a race against the other 4, you can be sure, Hugh, this will be a race against each other.
This is most importantly a race against each other, because curiously, these two doubles are also rowing in the quadruple, sculling in the quadruple sculls later on today, and they're in different quads as well. So they've got a double rivalry. They've got to do it here, and then in a couple of hours' time they've got to do it in the quads, and they're head-to-head in both events. So this is going to be, and they're out there on 5 and 6 next to each other. It's going to be a fascinating battle. And
of course it was double sculling where the Chinese really made their mark when they produced that outrageous shock in 1993 in Račice in the Czech Republic, when they toppled the mighty Germany, who were unbeaten until then, and went on being unbeaten for a long time until, well, the likes of Great Britain last year.
Until last year. So, no, it's a national event when the German quad coached, the German women's quad, coached by Jutta Lau for all of these years, when they fail. And only China and Great Britain have done it in living memory. So there we are with already lane 3, Great Britain, Annie Vernon, as you said, fastest qualifiers with Anna Bebbington. Those two have pulled out and put their nose in front. They're coached by Miles Forbes Thomas, who made his name as a sculling coach with Peter Heining, again back in Račice in '93, when Heining took the 94, I beg his pardon, took the single sculls, crabbing in the last 250 meters and bursting through the Australian Stephen Hawking to win, and rather in the manner that Alan Campbell this morning rather, took the men's single sculls with a burst over the last few strokes. So there's Miles Ford Thomas with his double in the lead, Annie Vernon and the Bebbington, identified with the world-class start program. They were not members of a standard rowing club. They were not sculling or rowing in a university crew or anything like that. They were identified in a talent identification process and have been drawn up through the system from there to this level of success.
So there they are. Annie Vernon, originally from Cornwall, but these days, of course, home for her is in London, down near Putney, whereas Anna Bebbington from Leek in Staffordshire. But again, early 20s and real promise. Annie Vernon, who sculled for Great Britain in the singles in the World Championships last year, decent finish there, 9th place. And Anna Bebbington, who was in the women's 8 that finished in 5th place.
Crucially, the reason they're in the double scull here and not in the quad is that they finished respectively 4th for Vernon and 6th for Bebbington in the single sculls trials back in April in Hasenwinkel in Belgium for the British trials there. And with those results, there was an issue of whether Fran Houten went into the quad or not, but in the end, Houten has gone into the quad, Vernon and Bebbington are in the double. It is the second-ranked crew, because obviously the world champion quad is the crew that Paul Thompson, the British national coach, is concerned should be his #1 boat, and this is their #2 boat, and the #2 boat is leading this race by a fairly comfortable margin at this stage as they come up to 1,000 meters.
So halfway, Britain leading through the first quarter. That was a 1:40.86. We've got a time on that on the second quarter in a moment from Germany and Belarus. And there's no doubt that Alan Campbell's success and the manner of the success will have already started to filter through. And Great Britain by just under a second ahead of Germany. China, and that's the first of the Chinese, that's Jin and Tang, who are currently in 3rd place ahead of the teenage Czechs, 19-year-old Antasova and Gabi Varikova, who's 18. And they're right on the far side in lane number 1. Another interesting thing I noticed was that the Chinese, I wonder whether we might put this to David Tanner. The Chinese have decided that to find their coxswains for the women's and men's eights, they're having a reality talent competition involving millions of people on national television. And they believe that they're going to find the right coxswains through that system.
Well, what they'll certainly do is generate a great deal of interest in sport in China in the run-up to 2008. Whether it's all showmanship or whether there is actually any benefit to come from it at all is not for us to decide. But it's absolutely excellent that they're engaging people in this way in selection. But you note it isn't for a place actually pulling one of these boats along, which is rather more difficult than steering it.
Now, Magdalena Schmuder and Steffi Schiller have taken the advantage here away from Annie Vernon and Annie Bennington, so they're now being asked a very serious question. On the far side there's the Czechs doing extremely well, Antasova and Varikova, who really are newcomers, and the Czechs didn't have an entry in this boat class in the World Championship, so this is very interesting. They are there in lane 1, but they're very much in contention. And coming to the 1500-meter mark now, and it is Germany by a whisker from Great Britain and the Czech Republic, and those three, Hugh, are really away.
Those three are well clear of the field. Bennington is one of those so intent on 2008 that she's actually learning Chinese as an additional talent to her 45 out of 55 hours to qualify as a pilot. She's quite clearly got a great deal on her plate. But at the moment, it's those two crews, Germany and Great Britain, and I think Great Britain have come back in front. Indeed, they have. In lane 3, they pulled back in front of Magdalena Schmuder and Steffi Schiller, and are now back in the lead, just in the manner that Germany passed Great Britain in the men's single sculls, and then Great Britain got back in front again.
Well, this is an interesting situation, and there was very little between them. It was right on the 1500-meter mark that Britain started to counter-attack.
Almost as if programmed by Miles Forbes-Thomas. He is very specific when dealing with inexperienced scullers, and they are inexperienced at this level. And at 35.5 strokes per minute, they are now half a length clear of Germany and do look like the crew most likely to win this race with 200 meters left to row.
And they are leading ahead of Germany, as you rightly say. A terrific effort there by the Czechs, Jitka Antasova and Gabriela Varikova also on the far side. And they are clear of the very experienced Belarus pair, and also Jin and Tang, who are getting the better of the argument for China. But it is a very, very good first World Cup at 37 strokes a minute. Annie Vernon and Anna Bennington, they come to the line now, and they are going to take this victory here for Great Britain, ahead of Magdalena Schmuder and Steffi Schiller, who could not respond, and the Czech Republic in third, ahead of Belarus, and then it'll be the two Chinese crews to come home. But that's an extremely encouraging performance there, Hugh.
I was very impressed by this business of coming back. You know, you let yourself get past, and usually that's the beginning of a spiral backwards through the field, not inspiration to turn the whole thing round on its head again. And so that's a second time we've seen it today, and it's most unusual. And for British crews to show that they've got that mental toughness as well as the physical training is very exciting indeed for British team prospects. And I haven't looked at the World Cup stats, we haven't been given them yet, but it wouldn't at all surprise me to find that Great Britain was actually in the lead today.
Well, I think that's very much on the cards. That's going to be given to us as the statisticians add it up. But the way we're going, and also when you consider that we've got the men's 4, the women's quads, the 8s, I mean, we have a fantastic performance here.